John stood behind the counter of Serenity Spa, the familiar hum of city life drifting through the glass door. The air was rich with the scents of lavender and eucalyptus, soothing his nerves as he massaged the tension from Mrs. Cooper's shoulders. Her chatter about her grandson's soccer exploits served as background noise. "You've got magic hands, John," she sighed, her voice a blend of relief and gratitude. "If only I could take you home with me." He chuckled, giving her shoulder a final pat. "If I had $1 for every time I heard that, Mrs. Cooper, I'd own this city." As the door closed behind her, John checked his phone. Among the routine notifications was something strange. New message. Holomail. Curious, he tapped it, and a shimmering holographic message flickered into the air. "John Smith," an automated yet silky voice began. "We are the Intergalactic Spa Corporation. Your reputation has reached across galaxies. We offer you a position at our elite spa on planet Zeta 9. Compensation is unparalleled. Please reply within 48 Earth hours." John blinked, rereading the message as it hovered, glowing softly. "Intergalactic Spa Corporation," he muttered. "A prank. But who could pull off something like this?" That evening, over beers with his best friend Mike, he shared the bizarre offer. "You've got to do it, man," Mike said, wide-eyed. "You've been stuck in this rut for years, always talking about how you want to shake things up. This is your chance." "But what if it's a scam?" John protested. "Or worse, a one-way ticket to alien experiments." Mike shrugged. "Only one way to find out. Besides, who wouldn't want to give an alien a massage? Think of the stories." The idea gnawed at John through the night. By morning, his curiosity had overcome his caution. With a deep breath, he typed his reply. "I accept." Hours later, his phone buzzed with detailed instructions and a virtual ticket. It all felt too real now. The day of departure arrived faster than expected. The transport ship waiting for him was sleek, its design futuristic yet oddly welcoming. Boarding felt like stepping into the future itself. The ship's walls glowed with soft ambient light, and the seats adjusted to his body with precision. The jump through hyperspace was breathtaking. Stars blurred into streaks, the universe folding and unfolding like a kaleidoscope. John found himself clutching the armrests, both terrified and exhilarated. After what felt like hours, the ship docked on Zeta 9. As John stepped onto alien soil, he was struck by the beauty and strangeness of his surroundings. Towering structures shimmered under a pale orange sky, and vehicles hovered silently through the air. Beings of every imaginable shape and size bustled past, their languages and colors blending into a vibrant tapestry of life. "Welcome to Zeta 9, Mr. Smith." A soft, melodic voice pulled him from his awe. A tall, elegant woman with shimmering blue skin approached. Her silver eyes glowed faintly as she smiled. "I'm Leia, manager of the Intergalactic Spa. It's an honor to have you here." John managed to stammer out a polite response, though his mind was racing. This was no ordinary day at Serenity Spa. As Leia led him through the sprawling facility, John marveled at the advanced technology. Rooms shifted shape and ambience to suit the preferences of alien clients. "You'll be working with beings from across the galaxy," Leia explained. "Each has unique needs and physiology, so adaptability is key." John nodded, though the enormity of the task ahead was starting to sink in. What had he gotten himself into? A galactic first day. John's first day at the Intergalactic Spa was a whirlwind of sensations. The air was thick with exotic aromas that seemed to shift and adapt to the preferences of whoever entered the space. His human senses were overwhelmed by the sights, sounds, and even subtle vibrations in the atmosphere. "Stay calm, adapt, and listen to the client's needs," Leia had advised during his orientation. But no amount of advice could prepare him for his first appointment. The door slid open with a soft hum, revealing a client who resembled a humanoid octopus. 4 arms waved lazily as the being floated into the room, its skin a swirling palette of iridescent colors. "Greetings," a voice resonated in John's mind. It took him a moment to realize the client was speaking telepathically. Hi," he stammered aloud, before remembering to think his response. "How can I assist you today?" The client explained, through images and sensations rather than words, that it suffered from tension in its upper arms due to frequent zero-gravity work. John studied the being, recalling Laya's advice to treat each client as a unique puzzle. He began applying his massage techniques, improvising where necessary. The being's muscles responded with subtle shifts in color, a sign of relief. By the end of the session, John felt a surprising sense of accomplishment. "Your techniques are refreshing," the client projected before leaving. The rest of the day was a series of challenges and revelations. A client with skin resembling flowing water required a gentler touch, while another with scales demanded firmer pressure. Each session pushed John to innovate, blending his earthborn skills with quick adaptations to alien physiology. As the day wound down, John felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. He was beginning to find his rhythm when the door to his next session opened, and she walked in. The alien woman was striking, her tall frame emanating an ethereal glow. Her silver eyes shimmered as she met his gaze. Her skin, a soft opalescent hue, seemed to reflect the ambient light in subtle waves. "Hello," she said, her voice smooth and melodic. "I am Zara." John nodded, his usual confidence faltering slightly. "Welcome, Zara. How can I assist you today?" "I've heard much about human massage techniques," she said, her lips curving into a faint smile. "I'm curious to experience them myself." John gestured toward the table, his hand steady despite his racing thoughts. As Zara lay down, her graceful movements captivated him. He focused on his work, applying the techniques he'd honed over years. Her skin felt warm and pliant under his hands, but there was an unusual resonance to her muscles. It was almost as if they responded in waves, pulsing gently beneath his touch. He adjusted his technique instinctively, and Zara seemed to relax further, her breathing slowing to a rhythmic cadence. Midway through the session, Zara suddenly tensed, letting out a soft, musical gasp. John froze, pulling his hands back. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice tinged with concern. Zara sat up slowly, her silver eyes wide with an emotion he couldn't quite place. "Yes," she said after a moment. "It's nothing." "Thank you, John. That was quite unique." Her tone was calm, but something about her lingering gaze unsettled him. As she left, John couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary had just occurred. The next few days were a blur of activity. John continued to refine his skills, meeting clients of every imaginable shape and size. Yet his thoughts kept drifting back to Zara. There was something enigmatic about her, something that both intrigued and unnerved him. When Zara returned for another session a week later, John greeted her with a mixture of anticipation and caution. This time, she didn't lie down immediately. "John," she said softly, her tone serious, "I need to talk to you." "Of course," he said, leading her to a quiet corner of the room. Zara hesitated, then took a deep breath. "My species has a unique reproductive system," she began. "It can be triggered by certain vibrations. During our last session, you activated that system." John's mind raced as her words sank in. "Wait, are you saying?" "Yes," Zara said, her silver eyes meeting his. "I am pregnant." The room seemed to spin as John tried to process the revelation. He had come to Zeta 9 seeking adventure and growth. But this was beyond anything he could have imagined. The unthinkable consequence. John sat in stunned silence, his mind struggling to process Zora's words. Pregnant. The idea seemed surreal, even absurd. He leaned back against the room's sleek, glowing wall, his breathing shallow. "I didn't know this could happen," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "I mean, I had no idea that my work could." "It's not your fault," Zara interrupted gently. Her silver eyes softened, radiating a strange blend of calm and concern. This is as much a surprise to me as it is to you. My species rarely experiences this, and even more rarely with beings from other worlds. But what does this mean? John asked, his voice barely above a whisper. For you, for me, for this child. Zara took a step closer, her glow pulsing faintly. We need guidance, she said firmly. There's a specialist here on Zeta 9, Dr. Oravin. She has expertise in interspecies reproduction. She'll help us understand what's happening and what we need to do. The next morning, John found himself walking through the sterile, futuristic halls of Zeta 9's advanced medical facility. Beside him, Zara moved with an elegance that belied the tension in the air. Dr. Oravin was a tall, angular figure with translucent skin that glimmered faintly under the bright lights. Her movements were precise, her demeanor professional yet kind. As Zara explained their situation, Dr. Vin listened attentively, her many-faceted eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of the room. This is indeed a rare and significant event, Dr. Vin said after a moment. Her voice was calm, but carried the weight of her expertise. We'll need to conduct a series of tests to confirm the pregnancy and assess its implications for both of you. As the doctor began her examinations, John couldn't help but feel like he was floating through an unreal dream. He had come to Zeta 9 for adventure and escape, but this turn of events was beyond anything he had envisioned. Hours later, Dr. Vin delivered the confirmation. Zara was indeed pregnant, and the child was a hybrid of their two species. This pregnancy will not be like those you're familiar with on Earth, Dr. Vin explained. It will progress differently, influenced by both of your unique physiologies. There are also legal and cultural considerations to navigate. Legal considerations? John asked, his stomach tightening. Dr. Vin nodded. Interspecies reproduction is governed by strict intergalactic laws to ensure the rights and responsibilities of all parties are respected. We'll need to begin the paperwork immediately. But more importantly, you'll both need to decide how involved you want to be in this process. The weight of her words pressed down on John. The idea of fatherhood was daunting enough, but a hybrid child with an alien species, the complexities seemed insurmountable. Zara, sensing his turmoil, led him outside after the appointment. The air was crisp, and the sky glowed with soft hues of orange and violet. They walked in silence for a while, the bustling city of Zeta 9 moving around them like a living organism. I know this is overwhelming, Zara said softly, breaking the silence. It is for me too. My species sees pregnancy as a sacred and significant event, but this is unprecedented. John nodded, staring at the horizon where towering glass spires pierced the sky. I just don't know if I'm ready for this, any of it. You're not alone in this, Zara said, her voice steady. We'll figure it out together, one step at a time. Her words brought a small measure of comfort, but the uncertainty still loomed large. The following days were a whirlwind of preparations. Dr. Vin provided a detailed plan for the pregnancy, outlining both medical and cultural considerations. Zara introduced John to the traditions of her people, from rituals celebrating new life to customs surrounding parenthood. One evening, as they walked through a quiet park filled with glowing flora, Zara paused. John, she began hesitantly, you should know that this child will be a bridge between our worlds. They will carry the traits of both our species, and their existence could change how our people view one another. Her words hit John like a thunderbolt. This wasn't just about them or their unexpected child. This was about something far greater, an opportunity to create a connection between species that had never existed before. As they sat under the alien trees, their leaves glowing faintly in the twilight, John felt a flicker of resolve. He didn't have all the answers, and the road ahead was daunting, but he knew one thing. He couldn't walk away from this. I'm in, he said finally, looking into Zara's silver eyes. Whatever it takes, I'll be here. Zara smiled, her glow intensifying briefly in what he now recognized as a sign of joy. Thank you, John. Together, we'll navigate this. Bridging worlds. The days that followed were a blend of chaos and discovery. Dr. Oravin's detailed regimen kept John and Zara busy with constant checkups, dietary adjustments, and preparations for the hybrid pregnancy. Each step revealed new insights into their biological compatibility, but also highlighted the challenges ahead. Your child is developing traits from both species, Dr. Vin explained during one session. This is uncharted territory. Physically, they'll likely be a blend, but their cognitive and emotional development will be fascinating and potentially unpredictable. John sat beside Zara, absorbing the words. The magnitude of their situation was overwhelming. This wasn't just about navigating a cross-species pregnancy. It was about nurturing a life that would represent the union of two entirely different worlds. Meanwhile, Zara began to share more of her culture with John, preparing him for what lay ahead. Her people, the Mirani, viewed parenthood as a sacred duty, intertwined with their spiritual beliefs. Every step of pregnancy and early childhood was marked by rituals meant to honor life and ensure balance between parent, child, and community. One afternoon, Zara brought John to a grand hall bathed in soft light, its ceiling adorned with swirling constellations. This is the Hall of Beginnings, Zara explained, her voice reverent. It's where we celebrate the arrival of new life. John marveled at the intricate carvings and glowing crystals that seemed to pulse with a gentle energy. It's beautiful, he said, his voice hushed. Zara nodded. When our child is born, we'll hold a ceremony here to present them to the community. It's a tradition that goes back thousands of years. John felt a pang of unease. While Zara's traditions were awe-inspiring, they also felt so alien. Could he ever truly understand them, let alone integrate himself into them? As Zara prepared John for her culture, she also made an effort to understand his. One evening, they sat in her quarters, a mix of earth food and Mirani delicacies spread before them. Tell me about how humans celebrate new life, Zara said, her silver eyes glowing softly. John chuckled nervously. Well, it's not quite as grand as your Hall of Beginnings. On Earth, it's different for everyone. Some people throw baby showers, parties to celebrate the arrival of a baby. Others keep things private and simple. It really depends on the family. Zara tilted her head thoughtfully. It seems humans value individuality in these moments, whereas the Mirani focus on collective celebration. Perhaps we can find a way to honor both traditions. John smiled, appreciating her willingness to meet him halfway. Yeah, I'd like that. Despite their efforts to prepare, not everyone on Zeta 9 was as accepting of their situation. Rumors of the pregnancy began to spread, and John started noticing the occasional pointed stare or hushed whisper as they walked through the city. One evening, Leah called John into her office. John, I've been hearing murmurs from some clients and staff, she began carefully. Interspecies pregnancies are rare, and not everyone is comfortable with the idea. You should be prepared for resistance. John's stomach tightened. What kind of resistance? Mostly gossip, Leah admitted, but there's always the chance it could escalate. My advice is to focus on your work and stay grounded. People's opinions tend to shift once they see how you handle things. John nodded, but the weight of her words stayed with him. The idea of being at the center of controversy was unsettling, but he reminded himself that he wasn't doing this alone. Zara's strength and calm presence grounded him, even as the world around them grew more complicated. One day, Zara approached John with a proposal. I've been thinking, she said, her voice steady but tinged with determination. Our situation could set an example for others. If we're willing, we could share our story with the council here on Zeta 9. It might help people understand and accept what's happening. John hesitated. The idea of going public with something so personal was daunting. Are you sure that's a good idea? What if it just makes things worse? It's a risk, Zara admitted, but it's also an opportunity. If we hide, people will fill the gaps with their own assumptions. If we're open, we can guide the narrative. After a long pause, John nodded. Okay, let's do it. Their presentation to the council was a mix of nerves and resolve. John spoke about his initial reluctance, his growing understanding of Zora's culture, and the responsibility he now felt for their child. Zara shared her perspective as a Mirani, emphasizing the importance of unity and mutual respect. The council members, a mix of species with varying expressions, listened intently. When they finished, there was a long silence before one of the counselors, a towering insectoid being, spoke. Your story is unusual, but it represents what we strive for here on Zeta 9, a place where diversity and understanding thrive. You have my support. One by one, the other counselors voiced their agreement. As John and Zara left the council chamber, a sense of relief washed over them. They had taken the first step in bridging not just their two species, but the broader cultural gaps that existed on Zeta 9. Walking hand in hand through the bustling streets, John felt a renewed sense of purpose. This wasn't just about survival or adaptation anymore. It was about creating something extraordinary, a future where their child could thrive as a symbol of connection and possibility. The challenge of acceptance. The news of John and Zara's presentation to the council spread rapidly through Zeta 9. Most residents were curious, some were supportive, but a vocal minority remained skeptical or outright opposed. For the first time since arriving on the planet, John felt the sting of judgment in the form of disapproving looks and whispered conversations that stopped the moment he entered a room. Not everyone embraces change easily. Zara told him one evening as they prepared for another medical checkup with Dr. Vin. Her voice was calm, but John could sense the tension in her demeanor. I just don't get it, John muttered. Zeta 9 is supposed to be a hub of diversity and acceptance. Why is this such a big deal? Zara hesitated before responding. Diversity doesn't mean unity, John. For many, this is about more than just us. It challenges their understanding of what's possible and what's right. That kind of shift can be frightening. Dr. Vin's checkups were a small sanctuary from the growing tension. As their child developed, the doctor marveled at the harmonious blending of human and Mirani traits. The child's physiology is fascinating, she said during one session. Their neural pathways are adapting in ways that could give them abilities neither of your species possess. This is truly groundbreaking. John couldn't help but feel a swell of pride mixed with apprehension. He hadn't even met the child yet, and they were already at the center of so much attention and expectation. What kind of abilities are we talking about? He asked. Dr. Vin smiled faintly. It's too early to tell, but given the unique qualities of both of your species, the possibilities are extraordinary. While their medical journey progressed smoothly, Zara and John decided it was time to address the growing tension among the spa's staff and clients. They organized an informal gathering at the spa's communal garden, inviting everyone to meet them and ask questions in a relaxed environment. At first, the gathering was awkward. Many of the attendees kept their distance, watching from the edges of the garden as John and Zara spoke about their journey. We understand this is unusual, Zara began, her voice carrying a calm authority. But we believe this child represents the best of both of our worlds. We're here to answer your questions and address any concerns you may have. A moment of silence followed before a small reptilian client raised their hand. How do you know this child will be safe? They asked, their voice filled with genuine concern. Dr. Vin, who had joined the gathering, stepped forward. I've been closely monitoring the pregnancy, she said. There are risks, as there are with any pregnancy, but so far, both Zara and the child are healthy. We're taking every precaution to ensure their safety. Gradually, more attendees began to ask questions. Some were practical, others deeply personal, and a few were even accusatory. But John and Zara answered each one with honesty and patience, supported by Dr. Vin's expertise and Laya's calm presence. As the evening wore on, the mood began to shift. A few attendees approached John and Zara to express their support, while others seemed to leave with a new perspective. You handled that well, Leah said afterward as the garden emptied. You may not have changed everyone's mind, but you opened a door. That's more than most can do." John nodded, feeling a mix of exhaustion and hope. It wasn't a victory, but it was a step forward. In the weeks that followed, the tension eased slightly. While not everyone on Zeta 9 embraced their situation, John and Zara began to notice more smiles and fewer whispers as they walked through the spa. Their lives, however, remained far from normal. Dr. Vin's examinations revealed new complexities in their child's development, including a surprising resilience to environmental changes. "This hybrid is adapting at an accelerated rate," she explained during one visit. "It's as if they're preparing to exist in both your worlds simultaneously." John was awed, but the revelation also brought new concerns. What kind of life will they have? He asked Zara one night as they sat beneath the glowing trees in the city park. "A unique one," Zara replied with a small smile. "But they'll have us to guide them. That's what matters." As the pregnancy progressed, Zara insisted on involving John in more Mirani traditions. One such ritual was the bonding circle, where expectant parents shared their hopes and fears with close friends and family. John was nervous as he entered the ceremonial hall, its walls alive with shifting colors that seemed to respond to their emotions. A small group of Mirani elders and allies, including Leia and Dr. Vin, had gathered to support them. Zara began the ritual, speaking in her melodic native tongue. When it was John's turn, he hesitated before finding his voice. "I never thought I'd be here," he began. "Not just on Zeta 9, but in this situation. It's overwhelming and scary, but also incredible. I don't know what kind of father I'll be, but I promise to give this child everything I can. To be there for them, and for Zara." The room filled with a warm glow, a sign of acceptance and unity among those present. For the first time since the pregnancy began, John felt like he was part of something greater than himself. As the bonding circle concluded, Zara squeezed John's hand. "You're doing better than you think," she said softly. "Thanks," John replied, his voice steady for the first time in weeks. "I think I might actually believe that now." The weight of the future. The final weeks of Zara's pregnancy brought a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. The hybrid child's development had accelerated, surprising even Dr. Vin with its rapid progress. John and Zara spent long hours preparing for the birth, navigating both Mirani and human traditions while trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy. One day, as John and Zara walked through Zeta 9's vibrant market, they were approached by an elder Mirani counselor named Velrin. His tall, slender form radiated authority, and his silver eyes mirrored Zara's. "John, Zara," Velrin began, his tone serious. "I wish to speak with you about your child." John stiffened, sensing the gravity of the moment. "What about them?" Velrin glanced around before continuing. "This child represents a new chapter for both our species. Their existence will challenge long-held beliefs and traditions. Some will view them as a symbol of unity, while others will see them as a threat." Zara's voice was steady but firm. "Our child is not a symbol or a threat, Velrin. They are simply a life we've created together." "Of course," Velrin said, inclining his head. "But you must understand the responsibility that comes with this. The Council will want to monitor the child's development, not out of malice, but to ensure their well-being and the balance of our society." John frowned. "Monitor? What does that mean exactly?" Velrin hesitated. "It's not intrusive, I assure you. But the Council may request periodic updates, possibly even involvement in certain cultural ceremonies. They believe this child will be a bridge between our worlds, and bridges must be carefully maintained." The conversation left John uneasy. He had already come to terms with the weight of fatherhood, but now the idea of his child being scrutinized by the Council added another layer of complexity. Back at the spa, John shared his concerns with Leia. "I get that this is unprecedented," he said, pacing in her office. "But I don't want my kid to grow up under a microscope." Leia leaned back in her chair, her expression thoughtful. "The Council's interest is understandable, John. But you and Zara have a say in how this unfolds. You've already shown you're willing to stand up for what's right. Keep doing that." Her words offered some reassurance, but the lingering uncertainty weighed heavily on John's mind. As the due date approached, the spa staff rallied around John and Zara. Even some of the clients who had been skeptical at first began to show their support. One client, a Mirani healer, gifted them a small crystal that pulsed with a soft, warm light. "It's a blessing stone," she explained. "It will help guide your child's spirit." Touched by the gesture, John and Zara placed the crystal in their quarters, its gentle glow a reminder of the growing support around them. The night Zara went into labor was one of chaos and intensity. John had never felt so helpless as he paced outside the medical suite, listening to the hum of advanced equipment and Zara's soft cries of pain. Dr. Vin emerged briefly, her expression calm but focused. "The child is strong," she said, placing a reassuring hand on John's shoulder. "Zara is handling this beautifully." Hours passed, each one stretching endlessly, until Dr. Vin finally emerged with a small, glowing bundle in her arms. "Congratulations," she said, her voice filled with quiet awe. "You're the parents of a healthy hybrid child." When John stepped into the room, he found Zara cradling their newborn. The child's skin shimmered faintly, a blend of human warmth and Mirani radiance. Their eyes, a bright silver flecked with earthy green, locked onto John's with an intensity that left him speechless. "They're beautiful," John whispered, his voice catching in his throat. Zara smiled, her exhaustion evident but overshadowed by joy. "Meet our bridge between worlds." The days following the birth were filled with wonder and adjustment. The child, whom they named Aria, displayed traits from both parents. They had Zara's ethereal glow, but also a distinctly human warmth and curiosity. Aria's cries were soft and melodic, almost like a song, and their presence seemed to draw people closer. Zara and John quickly realized that raising Aria would be unlike anything they had ever imagined. Aria's rapid cognitive development was both thrilling and daunting as they began to respond to their surroundings in ways that defied both human and Mirani expectations. One evening, as John held Aria close, he found himself reflecting on how much his life had changed. He had come to Zeta 9 seeking adventure, never expecting to find a purpose so profound. "You know," he said to Zara, who was watching them with a soft smile, "I used to think I wanted to escape my old life, but now I realize everything I went through led me here." Zara leaned against him, her glow soft and steady. "And here is where we're meant to be." A new dawn. The days turned into weeks, and John and Zara's lives began to settle into a new rhythm. Raising Aria was both challenging and rewarding. The hybrid child's unique nature meant every milestone brought surprises. Aria's laughter was a harmonious melody that seemed to calm everyone around, and their first attempts at movement were marked by an unusual grace that defied gravity. The spa staff and Zeta 9 community slowly warmed to Aria. Clients who had once been wary now stopped to coo at the child, their initial skepticism replaced with curiosity and awe. Even the council, which had remained cautious, seemed to embrace Aria as a symbol of hope for the future. But not all was peaceful. Rumors of Aria's abilities had spread beyond Zeta 9, reaching the ears of less welcoming factions in the galaxy. John and Zara began receiving cryptic messages warning of those who might see Aria as a threat or a resource to exploit. One evening, as John sat with Aria in the garden beneath the glowing trees, Zara approached him with a concerned expression. "I've been hearing whispers," she said, sitting beside him. "There are groups who don't want Aria to exist. They fear what our child represents." John's jaw tightened. "Let them fear. We're not hiding." Zara placed a hand on his arm, her touch calming. "We must be careful. Aria's safety comes first, but we must also show the galaxy that fear has no place in progress." Her words resonated with John, and they decided to take action. The next morning, John and Zara held a press conference on Zeta 9, inviting representatives from across the galaxy. Standing together with Area cradled in Zara's arms, they spoke of unity, hope, and the beauty of diversity. Area is not just our child, John said, his voice strong and clear. They are a symbol of what we can achieve when we embrace the unknown, when we choose understanding over fear. Zara continued, her voice melodic yet firm. This child is the bridge between our worlds. They show us that differences are not barriers but opportunities to grow together. The crowd, composed of beings from countless species, listened intently. As the event ended, applause echoed through the hall, a rare harmony among so many voices. In the months that followed, Area became a beacon of change. The Myrani Council, inspired by Zara and John's bravery, began initiatives to foster greater collaboration between species. The spa itself became a symbol of unity, with clients traveling from far-flung galaxies to experience its services and learn of John and Zara's story. For John, life on Zeta 9 had transformed in ways he could never have imagined. He no longer felt like an outsider. He was part of a community, a movement, and a family. His skills as a masseur were now sought after by beings who once doubted his presence, and his connection to Zara and Area gave him a purpose that transcended anything he had known on Earth. One evening, as the family sat beneath the stars, Area reached out, their tiny hand glowing faintly. The child's eyes, a mesmerizing blend of silver and green, reflected the starlight. "They're reaching for the future," Zara said softly, her voice filled with pride. John nodded, holding Zara's hand, "And we'll be there to guide them every step of the way." As the stars above twinkled in the endless expanse of the galaxy, John realized that his journey wasn't just about finding adventure or escape. It was about creating a future where boundaries didn't matter, where differences weren't obstacles, and where love and understanding could shape worlds. And in that moment, with his family by his side, John knew they had already begun building that future.